Welcome back to Cobbs Corner. I am your host, Morgan Cobbs. If this is your first time listening to Cobbs Corner, then welcome. And to my returning listeners, welcome back. On this week's edition of Cobbs Corner, we're going to be reviewing the movie Limitless. Limitless is a 2011 sci-fi thriller in which a mysterious pill that enables the user to access 100% of his brain's abilities transforms a struggling writer into a financial wizard, but it also puts him in a new world with many dangers. The movie is directed by Neil Berger, written by Leslie Dixon and Alan Glynn, stars Bradley Cooper, Anna Friel, and Abby Cornish. An action thriller about a writer who takes an experimental drug that allows him to use 100% of his mind as one man evolves into a perfect version of himself. Forces more corrupt than he can imagine mark him for assassination. Out-of-work writer Eddie Morra's rejection by girlfriend Lindy confirms his belief that he has zero future. That all vanishes the day an old friend introduces Eddie to NZT, a designer pharmaceutical that makes him laser-focused and more confident than any man alive. Now on an NZT-fueled odyssey, everything Eddie's read, heard, or seen is instantly organized and available to him. As the former nobody rises to the top of the financial world, he draws the attention of business mogul Carl von Loon, who sees this enhanced version of Eddie as the tool to make billions. But brutal side effects jeopardize his meteoric ascent, with a dwindling stash and hitmen who will eliminate him to get the NZT. Eddie must stay wired long enough to elude capture and fulfill his destiny. If he can't, he will become just another victim who thought he'd found invincibility in a bottle. Let's go to Cobb's Corner. So the movie is told initially kind of out of order. The movie starts at like the very end and then takes us back to the beginning. So in the end, at the very start of the movie, we see Eddie Morra, played by Bradley Cooper, the main character. He's like this successful guy. He's dressed all nice. He's got a nice apartment, and apparently somebody's after him. Somebody wants to kill him. And then we cut all the way back to the beginning of the story, and we see a different Eddie. We see an Eddie Morra who has a writing contract and has really just bad writer's block. Really bad writer's block. He lives in a dilapidated apartment, and he can't focus on writing, and he pretty much just, his life is pretty much falling apart. His girlfriend Lindy, played by Abby Cornish, dumps him. You know, his girlfriend dumps him because he has pretty much nothing going on in his life. Before that, he had been married and divorced to his ex-wife Melissa, played by Anna Friel. And yeah, at this point, Eddie's life is just pretty much in shambles. And then one day, while he's walking on the street, he runs into his ex-brother-in-law, Vernon, played by Johnny Whitworth, and Vernon tells him about this experimental pharmaceutical drug, the NZT. I think it said it in the storyline. Yeah, NZT. And so Eddie reluctantly takes this drug, and pretty much this drug is like I think the official term now, you know, for anyone listening who's like in the pharmaceutical industry or, you know, is a neurologist or psychologist, feel free to correct my, you know, pronunciation or any of the terms that I may use, because again, this is not my background. But if I'm not mistaken, the drug is called neurotropic. It's a kind of drug that pretty much allows you to gain full access of your brain, because we as humans, now in the movie they say that humans only utilize 20% of their brain. I've always heard that humans only utilize about 10%, and I think there's a movie, Lucy, with Scarlett Johansson, where I think Morgan Freeman's character said how, like, humans, we only utilize about 10% of our brain. So, you know, 10 to 20%. Again, you know, neurologists, neurologists, folks in the medical industry, feel free to actually confirm, you know, in the comments below, like how much of our brain capacity do we actually utilize. And it's also my understanding that dolphins utilize 100% of their brain, and they're actually considered smarter than chimpanzees, if I'm not mistaken. But this drug essentially gives you full access to all of your brain. And so Eddie, he takes this drug, and then he goes home, and you know, runs into his landlord's wife, and he sees her holding this book that he didn't even read, that he apparently one of the girls who in college that he was, I guess, trying to get with was a law major, and he remembered seeing that exact same book. And then so now, like, all the pieces are kind of coming together, and really with this drug he realizes that all the information that he's learned in life is not forgotten. It's still there, but it's just not at the forefront of his mind. You know, like, you don't forget the things that you learn. But this drug has expanded his mind and has given him full access to his brain. So now he's able to bring together past information and, like, have it all kind of make sense. And you know, and he ends up helping you know, landlord's wife, as she's kind of ranting at him, saying, like, you know, if you don't pay the rent, then you're gonna end up on the streets, blah blah blah. He's like kind of half tuning out, and this is really like his first experience with the NZT. And he notices that book, and she invites him in. He helps her write out whatever paper she had due the following week, and then Eddie goes back to his apartment, and it's like we see multiple Eddies moving around his apartment, and he starts, like, washing the dishes and organizing stuff, and just really just kind of cleaning up the floor, cleaning up the floor, takes a shower. He just really starts to turn his life around, clean up his workspace, his living space, and really just starts to, again, turn his life around that one day. But then the next day, he wakes up, and the effects of that drug have worn off, and he realizes that he needs more. So he goes over to to see Vernon. He goes over to see Vernon at his apartment, and Vernon, who I guess appears to be injured, pretty much sends Eddie to be his like errand boy. He sends Eddie to go pick up his dry cleaning and buy them some breakfast. Eddie comes back to the apartment, and Vernon has been killed, essentially. I'm not sure if we ever find out exactly who killed Vernon, but upon this realization that Vernon is dead, Eddie, he calls the cops. He's just like scared out of his mind. He calls 911, and while the police are on their way to the apartment, Eddie just looks through the apartment and just tries to find, where's Vernon's stash of NZT, and sure enough, I think it was like hidden like in the stove or something, and he finds like a whole wad of cash and a giant bag of like NZT pills. So the cops arrive, and Eddie has to kind of hide the money, hide the drugs, and then he eventually opens the door and like puts his hands up. He's like, "Hey, officers, I'm the one who called you. Body's over there." So Eddie leaves, and he starts, with this cash and with this supply of NZT, he starts to, again, goes back to improving his life, and he gets the novel written. He gets the novel written. He gets multiple calls back from the whatever publishing agency that he was working with. He gets a haircut. He starts going to the gym. He starts to become fluent in different languages, and he's able to meet people that he pretty much has opened doors for himself. Like, this drug has really opened doors for him. His social anxiety is gone. Social anxiety is gone, and he ends up going to parties, going to clubs, and meeting a bunch of different people, and even makes a group of friends who wanted to invite him to the beach, which was nowhere near New York. The beach, they might have been somewhere in Italy, I think. And he even like jumps off this like giant rock structure. Like he asks, has anybody ever jumped off? And they're like, no. He jumps off into the water, of course. And yeah, we just see how at this point, with this drug, Eddie has no fear, and he's just become immensely successful, and he's got better people skills. He's got no social anxiety, and he even meets somebody. He meets someone. At a party, he meets a guy who wants to. I think Kevin Doyle, played by Darren Goldstein, and Kevin Doyle wants to help him improve his investment portfolio. So he starts working with Kevin, and he starts to improve his investment portfolio, but with the drugs he's able to sort of like accurately predict like where the stock's going to go and keep track of like the algorithms, and he's able to just like multiply his money overnight. He becomes a millionaire pretty much overnight, and this attracts the attention of Carl Van Loon, played by Robert De Niro, who's I guess the head of the firm, and Hank Atwood, played by Richard Beckins, and they want to merge their firms. So yeah, Eddie Morra as the one who pretty much facilitates that merger, and eventually, I think there was one scene, and I guess this is kind of going backwards a bit, where although Eddie hadn't heard the voice of his ex-wife in 10 years, his ex-wife calls him after Vernon dies. His ex-wife calls him and asks about the drugs, and pretty much tells Eddie, you need to stay safe, you need to stay off these drugs. I can't see you. So yeah, eventually, after the book does well, Lindy comes back into Eddie's life, and the two of them get back together, and again, while Eddie's still on the drugs, still making money with this investment firm, and he runs into trouble with a man called Gennady, who I think was like a Russian like mobster, who pretty much loans Eddie the money, and pretty much like loans Eddie the money in exchange for the drugs. Gennady, who might have had some ties to Vernon. So Eddie's starting to see like the drawbacks of the drug, but yeah, he gets back together with Lindy, and and eventually it comes to the point where the drugs start making Eddie sick. Like he starts getting sick, and I think at one point he runs out of the drugs, and he has no choice but to go and find Lindy at work, at her job, just like kind of bust into her office, locks the door. He ends up having to tell her everything, and he sends her to his apartment to go get the drugs, but she's being followed by Gennady and a few of his goons. So, but she ends up taking NZT. She ends up taking NZT, and she ends up taking NZT and is able to escape. And then she tells Eddie, it's like, we shouldn't be, taking these drugs. Like, I've done things today that I would never have done. A man chased me with a knife today, and so. But overall, Eddie is able to sort of just have this endless confidence. Like even when he's off the drugs, he has to kind of improvise. But NZT drug, it unlocks his potential, and he even at the end of the movie starts to run for Senate. He starts to run for Senate in the state of New York, to represent the state of New York in the Senate, and he's even approached by Carl Van Loon, who asks him, like, what are you going to do when you're off the drugs? He said, I'll figure something out, essentially. And yeah, he runs for Senate at the very end of the movie. Eventually, we do get sort of it all kind of comes full circle, where we see Eddie, that he's got this new apartment, and that he's got security, but eventually the Russians make it into the apartment. They try to kill him, but Eddie is able to successfully is able to successfully fight off the goons. And it turns out that the apartment that he had, the new apartment that he bought, was previously owned by one of their former clients, or one of their former like arms dealers or whatever. So I mean, there's that whole scene. So it all kind of comes full circle. We see him at the edge of the building, contemplating, should I just jump off this building and end it all now? Luckily he doesn't. He goes back, fights off the Russian mobsters, and he lives. I think this movie has the themes of unlocking your full potential. Yeah, unlocking your full potential, and how you can pretty much become an expert at anything if you put your mind to it. If you set your mind to it, if you're consistent, if you work diligently, and I think Malcolm Gladwell had a concept of the 10,000 hour rule, and I read a book in high school written by Malcolm Gladwell called Outliers, where he talks about the 10,000 hour rule and how essentially states like if you dedicate 10,000 hours to a certain task, then you become an expert at it. So now, of course, NZT was that hack, to get to kind of fast track your way up to expert level. But of course, it had its drawbacks. It had its side effects. So every action has an equal and opposite reaction. I believe that to be true not just in physics, but in life, in everything that we do, and all the choices that we make. And I think this movie does not glorify pharmaceutical drugs or narcotics. It doesn't glorify drugs or anything. And just like how I think I talked about in my Fight Club review, new listeners, go back and listen to my Fight Club review. Fight Club the movie is not about fighting. The movie does not glorify violence. The movie is about choices. This movie does not glorify drug use. It is about choices and how the choices that we make define who we are. And it is up to us whether or not we're going to actually improve our lives. You see, Eddie could have just given up on life. He could have just not written the book. He could have, not become the best version of himself. He could have accepted defeat. But he made a conscious choice to take NCT and improve his life. Now, maybe for us, the viewers, you have to, I guess, understand that this is all a movie, and no, the movie does not, no, Bradley Cooper or, the directors, producers, they're not advocating for drug use, alright? But ask yourself, what is that NZT? What is that thing that I can do on a daily basis to improve my life, to get my foot in the door, to get the job that I want, to get the relationship that I want, the house that I want, be able to live the life that I want to. I think many of us, alright, myself included, not to simply just point fingers at y'all or anything. I think many of us have not unlocked our true potential. And I don't know if that's like, I don't know if we can, blame society or social media or, I mean, I could, go on all day about that, but I just think many of us have not unlocked our full potential, and many of us are afraid of failing. Many of us are afraid of taking risks today. Many of us are afraid of taking risks, afraid of failing, afraid of dying, And I think this movie doubles down on the themes that I explored, that were explored in Fight Club and even Catch Me If You Can, of having no fear, of being fearless. I think the themes of this movie are unlocking your true potential, having no fear, unlocking your true potential, and I guess you could say self-improvement, improving your life, and making, which I would argue is a choice. Alright? Progress is a choice. Improving your life, that is a choice. That is a conscious choice that each and every one of us must make on a daily basis. And Eddie, he was so dedicated to taking NCT, was gonna continue to improve his life. Ask yourself, what is your NZT? What is your one action that you can repeat again and again and again and again on a daily basis to improve your life? It's like Arnold. I think Arnold Schwarzenegger had a quote during like the motivational speech that like broke the internet, where he said, like, what if you read for 1 hour a day, every day, for a year? Just think how much knowledge you would know after 365 hours. You know, if you've got a passion project, what if you worked on it for 1 hour a day, every day, for a year? You know, side business, you know, even starting a podcast. I mean, you know, to kind of, I guess, turn it back on myself. I mean, you know, I had, and well, I guess, a bit of a short story for me, I guess. I, for years, well, not for years, maybe for a few months, had this idea of starting a podcast, seeing all these other podcasts, all these other YouTube channels, listening to the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, and really just sort of asking myself, like, what if I started my own podcast, and having the idea of, like, oh, I want to review movies, and I want to analyze this and analyze that, and, you know, so I eventually, I mean, you all, you know, for those of you who have been with me since the beginning, you know that I started this podcast, officially started it on May 6th, 2022, and I made my first upload. I want to say my very first episode was uploaded May 12th of last year, May 12th, 2022, but, and like I said, like, this has all been a learning experience. I've been sort of learning as I go. This podcast is a work in progress, and I believe that I myself am a work in progress, and that this podcast has not unlocked its full potential. But I intend to keep posting once a week, every week, and, you know, to the best of my ability, and to just be diligent, and to just keep moving forward, and to just never stop, and to keep kind of just focusing on this podcast and unlocking the full potential of this podcast, unlocking my own full potential. We are all going to unlock our full potential and become the best versions of ourselves. All right. And like I said, I don't remember which movie it was on this Change Your Life series. Oh, yeah, and I actually forgot to mention that this is movie number 6 in our Change Your Life series. We've only got 2 movies left to go, but you can watch all 8 of these movies all you want, but in order to really improve your life, you have to be willing to apply what you've learned. You know, I'm not saying don't watch these movies and enjoy them for, you know, the entertainment as well as the information, but you have to be willing to put things into practice for yourself, and not just go by what other people say. You know, it's like that quote from Bruce Lee: accept what's useful, reject what's useless, add what's uniquely your own. Engage in your own experience. Identify your NZT and go for it. Every single day. That's how you improve your life. So that's pretty much the highlight reel and the main takeaways for this movie. I'd love to hear from you guys. I'd love to hear from you guys. Whether if you're listening to this podcast on Spotify or on any other listening platform, or if you're watching this podcast on YouTube, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below. Like, what are your thoughts on this movie, on like anything that we covered in today's episode, which is not over yet. But Tagline for the movie: what if a pill could make you rich and powerful? I'll make that as a pinned comment on YouTube, and I'll add that as a kind of rhetorical question on rhetorical question on Spotify. Genre, as I stated before, genres are sci-fi and thriller. It's a sci-fi thriller. Motion picture rating, MPAA rated at PG-13 for thematic material involving a drug, violence including disturbing images, sexuality, and language. Onto a bit of trivia. Bradley Cooper's father was ill with terminal cancer during the filming of this movie, and Cooper was accordingly relieved that the movie was shot in his hometown of Philadelphia so that he could check on his father every day. Okay, well, I mean, this is probably, well, I'm sure it's not the first movie to primarily take place in New York. Yeah, take place in New York and then not be filmed there. I feel like it's always... I feel like most movies that take place in New York might also be filmed in New York, but okay. I mean, hey, Bradley Cooper's from Philadelphia. I actually didn't know that. To my listeners in the city of brotherly love, to my listeners in Philly, salute. Shout out to all my listeners in Philly. I will definitely be coming your way, because now I know that Philadelphia is a filming location for Limitless. But yeah, that's it's really sad about Bradley Cooper's father having terminal cancer. I mean, cancer is not pretty, like, at all. Shia LaBeouf was cast as Eddie, but had to drop out after badly injuring his left hand in a car accident in July 2008. Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, you figure, these movies, they probably end up casting these roles like years, couple years in advance. I mean, the movie came out in 2011, so production was probably like 2009, 2010. So yeah, I mean, but hey, Shia LaBeouf as Eddie could have been done. Could have been done. Would have killed it. I mean, Bradley Cooper definitely did his thing. And I'm not overly familiar with Bradley Cooper's acting, but Bradley Cooper definitely showed up for this role, for sure. The apartment Eddie Morra lives in, shown in the introduction scene along with the final scenes, is the same apartment shown in Kick-Ass. Oh. Well, I have not seen the first Kick-Ass. I know, I've seen the second Kick-Ass. I've only seen Kick-Ass 2. I never saw the first Kick-Ass. And I know Aaron Taylor Johnson's in that movie. Yeah. So now I gotta go back and watch Kick-Ass. In a rare move, writer Leslie Dixon sold the screenplay for the film under the condition that her script would not receive rewrites from any other screenwriter. Okay, well, I mean, I guess as an artist you want to protect your art, and yeah, I know a lot of these scripts have like script revisions, and they have like revisions and like changes are done, and like how even with some projects they'll have like directors will drop out. Directors and writers will drop out due to creative differences. So Leslie Dixon sort of having that condition, putting her foot down. It's like, I'm only going to sell this screenplay under the condition that my script will not receive any rewrites. Smart. Throughout production, the film was called The Dark Fields, the same name of the book on which it was based. So again, here we have another movie based on a book. I actually didn't know that until I watched like the opening credits. It's like based on The Dark Fields. I'm like, okay, another movie based on a book. It's like, now that I've seen the movie, I have a reason to go back and read the book and then watch the movie again. So, a bit of spoilers. Well, I mean, then again, like I've talked about the entire movie at this point, so it's like if you didn't know that there were going to be spoilers, I mean, it's on you. Near the end of the movie, we see Eddie has written a novel called Illuminating the Dark Fields, a resemblance to the novel The Dark Fields by Alan Glynn, on which the movie's based on, the aforementioned The Dark Fields. So yeah, nice little paying homage to the author of the book. Thomas Arana, man in the tan coat, speaks only one word of dialogue in the entire film. Wow. Well, again, eagle-eyed viewers who eat, sleep, and breathe Easter eggs, trivia, you know. Whenever Eddie Morra takes the pill, the movie upscales in color, then goes down when he is regular Eddie Morra. So yeah, that is one thing that I noticed that I actually forgot to mention, was that when Eddie Morra takes the NZT pill, the movie upscales in color. It has like a more brighter tint to it, and then when he's off NZT, then it goes back down to like regular picture. So at around an hour and 20 minutes, the package marked urgent, which was hand delivered to Eddie, while in Carl's office had hand delivery written on the bottom right, and was literally a hand delivery from those that were severed from his bodyguards, right? Because Eddie has I think I mentioned that he had bodyguards, so apparently his bodyguards had their hands chopped off by the goons or whatever. So yeah, it's brutal. The dead Supreme Court Justice R.J.L. Phillips and the book about him are completely fictional. Okay. So yeah, I'd have to. I was gonna look up that Supreme Court justice and see is there a book out there? But now I know for a fact it's purely fiction. All right, some goofs. Continuity. After the fight in the subway, the bruises on Eddie's knuckles appear and disappear between scenes. Again, eagle-eyed viewers. When Eddie jumps off the cliff into the ocean, it is the middle of the day, but when he returns to the surface of the water, the sun is setting. Well, it probably would have taken. Oh no! Well, probably would have taken a while for him to get back up to dry land, but him coming up to the surface, it's the sun is setting. Okay, well, it's a interesting bit of breaking continuity. When Eddie talks to Vern, the stubble on his chin changes length between shots. Well, they probably they might have shot that scene at two different points in time. Maybe you gotta understand. Some actors will go clean shaven for roles, or they'll grow their beards out for roles. It's a whole thing. After Eddie cleans his apartment until it is spotless, he returns from a visit to his editor and walks into a messy apartment. I think I did notice that. Yeah, breaking continuity. As Eddie watches Mrs. Atwood and her henchman with the injured cheek climb into the limousine, he wears a white shirt, then walks off in a striped shirt, then arrives and leaves the identity parade in a light blue shirt. Wonder if that was intentional. Some quotes from the movie. Eddie Moran. Well, in order for a career to evolve, I'm going to have to move on. Carl Van Loon. That you would even think that would only show me how unprepared you are to be on your own. You do know you're a freak. Your deductive powers are a gift from God, or chance, or a straight shot of sperm, or whatever. or whoever wrote your life script. A gift not earned. You do not know what I know because you have not earned those powers. You're careless with those powers. You flaunt them and you throw them around like a brat with his trust fund. You haven't had to climb up all the greasy little rungs. You haven't been bored blind at the fundraisers. You haven't done the time in that first marriage to the girl with the right father. You think you can leap over all in a single bound. You haven't had to bribe or charm or threat your way to a seat at that table. You don't know how to assess your competition because you haven't competed. Don't make me your competition. So yeah, I mean, Carl Van Loon, you know, he's in this particular scene, which I think this might have been at the end as Carl's about to get into his limo. He's essentially saying how Eddie has all these powers, and again, you know, he literally point blank calls him a freak and says, you know, you don't know how to use this gift because you haven't earned it. You don't know how to handle being at the top because you haven't had to climb your way to the top. You just got there somehow. So he pretty much is scolding and threatening Eddie at this point. You know, he's mad at Eddie's success, I guess, or jealous, I guess. Another quote. Eddie Morra, you know, voiceover, standing on edge of his apartment building. For a guy with a 4-digit IQ, I must have missed something, and I hadn't missed much. I'd come this close to having an impact on the world, and now the only thing I'd have an impact on was the sidewalk. That's the that's like at the beginning when he's standing at the edge of the roof, and you know, contemplating just jumping off, which luckily he does not. But Eddie Morra, I don't have delusions of grandeur. I have an actual recipe for grandeur. That's, you know, that's the NZT talking. That's just Eddie being a badass. Just, you know what I'm saying, I have an actual recipe for grandeur. Essentially saying, come at me, bro. I mean, alright. Carl Van Loon, have you been talking to anyone? Eddie, no, I haven't been talking to anyone, Carl. I'm not stupid. Carl Van Loon, I know you're not stupid, Eddie, but don't make the classic smart person mistake, thinking no one's smarter than you. I'm honestly with Carl on this particular quote. Yeah, you know, don't make the smart person mistake by thinking that nobody's smarter than you. Yeah. Lindy asks Eddie, since when do you speak Italian? Eddie, oh. Eddie laughs. Self-improvement month. That's exactly what I'm going to start saying when I learn languages, when I learn new skills, and be like, oh, self-improvement month. Yeah. Alternate versions. An unrated extended cut makes 27 changes for about a minute extra runtime. These edits were mainly reverts from not having an R rating for the theatrical release. Okay. Alright, cool. Connections. This movie was featured in Ebert Presents at the Movies episode 1.8, television episode in 2011. A clip is shown of the film to be reviewed next week. Ebert Presents at the Movies episode 1.9. Clips are shown as Roger Ebert reviews the film. So, it's a teaser for the next episode and then the next episode. The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. Episode, I guess, probably episode 113 of season 19, I guess. Bradley Cooper introduces a clip from the film. And then again, Ebert Presents at the Movies, episode 10. Clips are shown as Roger Ebert reviews the film. The Hour, episode 7.150. Footage shown during Bradley Cooper's bio segment. Features. Way of the Dragon, 1972. During the subway fight, the main character draws on his memory of watching Bruce Lee on TV as a kid to help him ward off his attackers, right? So I guess the name of the movie was The Way of the Dragon from 1972. It was a Bruce Lee movie. So lots of other references and spin-offs that I highly recommend you guys look at the IMDb page for this movie. Soundtracks. Cicada, written by Richard Balliot, Fountain Tops, and Edward Balliot, performed by Versus, courtesy of Merge Records, by arrangement with Bank Robber Music. I Don't Care If There's Cursing, Lonely, Blue Boy, Let It Go, Walking, Howling for You. I feel like that song was used in some video game, maybe one of the NBA 2K games, maybe like 2K17, maybe. I'm not sure. That's the song that goes like da 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 da. Yeah, I recognize that song. Prelude, OP.3:2 in C sharp minor. That's probably the song he was playing on the piano. Don't Sweat the Technique by Eric B. and Rakim. I definitely recognize that one. Recognize that song. Chocolate and Cheese, La Boquilla, Dixon Remix, Athens by Night, The Way It Was, The Believers, This My Club, performed by Prophet, Jukebox by Kids in the Hall, Hookshot by Wolfgang Gardner, and Yanks Valley, written and performed by Matt Hurt. And here, before we leave the IMDb page, we have a featured user review. A stylish, fun film to watch. A stylish movie with an interesting premise that delivers more than it fails. Bradley Cooper as Eddie Morra was good in the idea, and actually all the characters in the film were interesting. That includes the villains were credibly menacing. Anyone who has been hooked on any kind of pill can relate to this film. The pill in this story, however, is different from anything anyone's heard of, and intriguing. You can't help but wonder if you would be tempted to take it yourself. Co-starring with Cooper and his magic pill is the style of the film. It's very stylish and looks great on Blu-ray. If you're into visuals, this is a good movie to check out. The same goes for fans of suspense. I found this very entertaining and a film I would watch again. Yeah, the ending is a little contrived, but overall it is a fun movie to watch. This review was made by CC the Movie Man -1 on July 22nd, 2011. So this review was probably made around the same time that the movie came out. I agree. It's a fun movie. I think the official IMDb score is 7.4 out of 10. That's fair. I actually don't have a problem with it. I think it's a fun movie. Yeah, it's a fun. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a fun movie. It's almost like a what would you do sort of thing. It's like if you had the ability, if you had a pill to pretty much hack your brain to make you more successful and to pretty much unlock your full potential. It's like, what would you do? And yeah, I think it's also pretty fun to think about, and it's just really like a fun movie to watch at the end of the day. So, movie was released on March 18th, 2011 here in the United States. Its country of origin, U.S. Its initial release languages are English, Russian, Italian, Mandarin, and French. Also known as the Dark Fields. The Dark Fields being, again, the aforementioned novel that the movie is based on. Filming locations: Bahia de Banderas, Puerto Vallarta, Jalisco, Mexico. Apologies if I mispronounce any of that. Production companies: Relativity Media, Virgin Produced, and Rogue. So now I'm definitely going to wherever this place is in Mexico. Its reported budget had an estimated $27 million budget. Opening weekend in the U.S. and Canada, it made $18.9 million. So it did not make a profit its opening weekend. Its gross domestic profit that it made was it made $79 million. Well, that's within the U.S. and Canada. So made a profit domestically and internationally. Worldwide, it made $161.8 million. So it was a success at the box office. It's always good, when a movie makes money at the box office, makes real money at the box office. Runtime about an hour and 45 minutes. So movie's not too long. It's just under 2 hours. It's a quick watch. It's in color. And I guess that's all for IMDb. On to Rotten Tomatoes. Critical score 69%. Audience score 74%. I'm with the audience. I say 74%, just like how 7.4 out of 10 on IMDb lines up. On this particular case, I think critics. Now I'm going to read the critics consensus, but again, I think that critics do sometimes have a tendency to be a little too hard on films, especially sci-fi thrillers like Limitless. So, critics' consensus: although its script is uneven, Neil Bergen directs Limitless with plenty of visual panache, and Bradley Cooper makes for a charismatic star. Right. So, yeah, I will say that yes, the script was a bit uneven, but I've also mentioned how there's no such thing as a perfect movie. There's just too many variables. It's not humanly possible to make a quote-unquote perfect film. That said, I still lean with the 74%. I agree with the critics' consensus, but I don't agree with the tomato meter score. I agree with the audience score, 74%. And that's over 100,000 ratings from the audience, and only 202 reviews from the critics. So yeah, 74%, because I think it's good. It's a good movie. I won't say it's great. I won't say it's like revolutionary. I won't say it's like I wouldn't even say that it's the best movie on our list. Even I wouldn't say it's the best movie on our list of the movies that'll change your life. But it is what it is. Highly recommend you guys check it out. This movie is available to stream on Max. That's where I streamed it. It is available on Max. And for those of us who don't have Max, it is available with a premium subscription on Hulu, a premium subscription on the Roku channel. You can, I think, rent it on Redbox for $2.99, Vudu for $3.99, premium subscription with Amazon Prime Video, rent it on Google Play Movies or on YouTube for $2.99, and on Apple TV for $3.99. So that is all that I have for this review of Limitless. Let me know let me know what your thoughts are on this movie. If you liked what you heard today, feel free to check the show notes below and follow us on all of our social media platforms, and leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening from. Turn on your post notifications because I will be dropping a new episode every Friday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And guys, we are almost at the end of this Movies That Will Change Your Life series. There's only 8 movies. Limitless, this is movie number 6. We've got 2 movies left. We've got next week will be Crazy Stupid Love, and the week after that will be The Way, Way Back. So thank you guys for riding out this series. We're not done yet, but we've only got 2 more films. So thank you guys for bearing with me this summer as we took a break from Marvel, a break from DC. So thank you guys for sticking with us, and tune in next week when we review Crazy Stupid Love. That is all for today. Hope you guys enjoyed your stay here at Cobbs Corner. I will talk to all of you in the next episode. Peace.